Good morning, everybody. Disney Chris here. It's been a long time since my last YouTube vlog update on the Disneyland Magical Audio Tour. Today is March 2nd, 2018, and it's time to get you all up to date. I did not do a video for a couple weeks because I went away for 10 days, and while I was away, of course, I didn't get anything done on my website. I did not have access to a computer while I was gone. So I didn't bother to do an update last Friday because I really did not have much to report on because I had been gone. So I have a little bit to report on today. I did have to get some other things done, but I do have a few things to share today. This probably won't be that long of an update, but I will do my best to pad it and make it more interesting. So first of all, I've been working with a really great guy that's turned out to be very, very, beyond. He's gone above and beyond to help improve my site for me, just as a visitor to the site, someone who appreciates the site. So he's also someone who's an expert at computers, and he felt like his expertise could help improve the site, its efficiency and whatnot. So he's done so much so far, and we're going to be continuing to work together going forward. But one major thing that has happened since the last update is he helped me rebuild my entire home page. It looks basically the same as it always has, but the difference is we eliminated, well, I shouldn't say we, he basically did all the work. I just kind of stood by and watched him do the work, and then he walked me through a few minor, easy things, but for the most part he did the lion's share of the work. So we is not the proper pronoun to use to describe this. It was mostly him. He rebuilt my entire home page basically from scratch, using all the data I had on my original home page. But the difference is that there's about half as much code on the page. There was a lot of unneeded, repetitive code from when things had been deleted and replaced over the years. And he basically, everything that was on the page before is there now, but it will probably load about twice as fast as it used to. We're going to be doing this with basically every page on my site, but we started off with the home page, and of course then we'll be taking it, from there. But the home page was sort of our proving ground, I guess, or his proving ground, or maybe proving ground isn't the right word, but it was kind of our test to see how it would go. And everything pretty much, we had to tweak things a little bit, but everything pretty much looks perfect. And the other thing that's a huge improvement is it doesn't just look perfect on Firefox, which is the browser I typically use for about 90% of everything I do. But we checked and we made sure that everything looks nice on Explorer and Chrome. So basically everything is looking consistent and perfect on all three of those browsers, which are probably 95% of everybody uses one of those three. We didn't really check on Safari and the others, but we're just kind of assuming that if it looks good on those three, that it likely would look good on any other browsers. One thing that's an issue is looking at the site using a mobile device. A lot of the data tends to bleed off. This white area is skinnier when you look at it on a phone, and a lot of the data bleeds over to the blue area, and you have to scroll over. It doesn't compress it to fit. We're going to try and work on that down the road. We don't know exactly how much of it we'll be able to fix, but we're going to work on it. It's on the list of things to work on down the road. So hopefully at some point we'll be able to figure out how to compress everything so that it's easier to see on a mobile device. But the good news is that at least at this point you're able to play all of the music, and everything on the site is totally accessible from your phone, which it wasn't before because we have a new player, a new audio player. Now, speaking of the audio player, another thing that's changed is we changed it to a new audio player, which I feel looks a lot prettier. It looks a lot like the old audio player I had on my site for many years. This is it right here. We spent a lot of time together figuring out the look of it. We designed it together. He did all the computer stuff, and I kind of picked out what I wanted the player to look like. So the other thing is, just to protect me from Disney, I don't make any of the content on my site downloadable from the site directly. I know a lot of people would love to have access to being able to just download everything directly from my site, but I'm sure Disney wouldn't love that, and that's the reason why I don't do it. It has nothing to do with me trying to be a hoarder or stingy with the audio I have. It has to do with I want to be able to share the audio and not have Disney give me the evil eye by having all this content being downloadable. It is not something that I have the copyright for. It's owned by Disney, the lion's share of the audio on my site, and that's why I don't make it easy to download, is just because I want it to be a place you can go to and listen to the music and everyone has access to be able to hear the music, but I don't want it to be downloadable because Disney might have a problem with that, because a lot of it is music you can purchase from Disney. A lot of it isn't, because it's out of print, or Disney does it's archival stuff that Disney doesn't put out there for purchase anymore. But a lot of it is, so I just don't want to get into any trouble with Disney. I know Disney knows about my site because I've had certain dealings where I had to get permission from Disney to do certain things. I contributed some audio for a PBS special 2 years ago. I guess it's now 3 years ago, on the life of Walt Disney. I contributed some of my edited audio pieces for their Disneyland segment, and we had to get permission from the Walt Disney Company in order for the production company making the documentary to use my archival materials, and Disney had no issue with it at all. They were very lenient about it, and they said, go ahead, it doesn't, that's fine. And I even got credited for it on the documentary. So, I mean, Disney is obviously aware of what I do, and I know there's a few Imagineers out there that go to my site and enjoy being able to access all the audio. So a lot of in-house Disney people secretly use my site and enjoy it. So I don't see, I've never been contacted by Disney at all. So, and the site's been up for over, I guess, 7 years now. I've had 2013 was when I started. So 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Well, I guess that's 5 years. It seems like 7. But 5 years I've never been contacted by Disney, and they're well aware of me. And I want to keep it that way. And I don't want to ruffle any feathers, and that's why I typically don't share my audio and I don't make it downloadable. So what I'm getting to is the other audio player that was on here temporarily made it extremely easy to download the audio directly from the site. And that was a problem for me. Not because I don't want people to have the audio for greed reasons or, but because I don't want Disney to get annoyed with it and shut me down at some point. So I replaced the player that was there with a player that you cannot download music from again like the old days. But the player is HTML5, so it's the best of both worlds. It has basically all the functions of my old Flash player, but it has all the compatibility of HTML5 where you can basically use it on any device. So, I love the look of the new player. It's very efficient. It's wonderful. If you have any problems with it, please let me know, and I will look into it. But so far, everything has just been wonderful with it, and I really appreciate my friend for helping me set this up and improve it and make it so much better. And the other thing is, it looks the same on all browsers. The other player I was using, it looked different on Explorer, it looked different on Chrome, and that was really annoying to me. I'm a design freak. I went to school for design, so I really want the audio players to look a certain way. I want everything on my site to look a certain way. The visual aspect of my site is more important to me than the functionality, to tell you the truth. For me, it's form over function when it comes to my website. So anyway, that being said, let me show you a couple things that I've worked on since the last time we talked. I have finally completed a chapter in full. But when I say completed, that means for now, because there's always the chance that I will get more new audio that belongs on this chapter, and so I'll have to add new audio down the road. But currently, everything I have in my possession that belongs on this chapter is edited, posted, completed, and done. So Chapter 20, Disneyland After Dark, every track is posted and everything is available. And in order to do that, I worked on 2 new tracks, which I added after I returned from my trip. And those tracks would be number 24, Skiles and Henderson. This is a stand-up comedy routine. It was recorded on an album live in the 1960s, but it's very authentic because it's the actual comedy team, and they were very active at Disneyland in the 50s and 60s. They performed at the Golden Horseshoe stage and at the Carnation Gardens. And basically, they kind of filled in when the main players had the night off. So if the regular Golden Horseshoe cast had the day off, they would feature Skiles and Henderson oftentimes at the Golden Horseshoe. And if Bill Elliott and the Disneyland Date Nighters had the night off, the Skiles and Henderson would perform at the Plaza Gardens. They also were great, prolific musicians, and they led a band at the park called the Disneyland Doodlers, which were a little bit more silly than the Elliott Brothers, but they still could play the same type of songs. There was a little more comedy involved in it, but they still had dancing and whatnot. So this comedy routine kind of captures the time period when they were still performing at Disneyland, even though this wasn't recorded at Disneyland. And it's just, they do a lot of stuff with creating sound effects with just using their voices and the microphones, kind of something that became more in vogue in the 80s with, I forget the name of that actor, but that comedian that was in the Police Academy films that did all the sound effects. Well, Skiles and Henderson were doing that decades before he was doing it. So anyway, it's really funny. It was a lot of work to edit this. It basically, for every minute, it took me about 2 hours to edit. It was horrific to edit because I wanted to take out all the background noise, people in the audience coughing, just all the things that didn't sound right. So I really worked hard to clean this one. So if you want to check this one out, I'm really proud of how it came out. It was a lot of work, but I'm happy that it's finally done. It's something I've been putting off because of the work involved. I've been putting it off for months, but I finally got it done. So, and then the other track I completed just the other day is Michael Iceberg, The Amazing Iceberg Machine, which is track 54. So this is a track I had not originally planned on including on this chapter, but I kind of, not because I didn't feel that he belonged, but because I kind of didn't remember about it, I kind of wasn't thinking about it. But I ended up having a brainstorm one morning and, oh, I need to include him. Why'd I forget about him? So I added this track into the chapter. And so basically, he was kind of a revolutionary synthesizer and electronic music performer from the very early years. We're talking like he started his career in probably the early 70s, and he started performing at the Disney parks in the 70s and continued throughout the 80s. He mostly played at Walt Disney World, but he often did travel to California and do some stuff at Disneyland too. So it's legitimate to include him in my Disneyland collection. In fact, in 1985, he recorded a television special for the Disney Channel, a half-hour concert special at the Tomorrowland Terrace, which is posted on YouTube. You could go check that out if you're interested. And the fun thing about this album that I'm using to represent him, it was actually recorded at Walt Disney World. So it was recorded in a Disney park, and he makes lots of Disney references in the concert. And it's very similar to the same concert that you can watch from the Disney Channel that was recorded in 1985. It has a lot of the same jokes and a lot of the same sound effects and things. So it's very close to what he would actually have performed at Disneyland. So it's pretty authentic, and I did a lot of work to clean this one up too. And it was recorded from a soundboard, which wasn't picking up the audience very well. You could only hear the audience reactions faintly in the background. So I added in a better sounding applause to make it sound more like they're really there and not like in some box off in the distance. And I added a couple laughs and things just to pad it out, make it sound better, and it really came out great. The sound quality on this one's really nice, so be sure to check that out. So those were the last two things I had to work on to complete the chapter. So I did remove two tracks that I wanted to have included. One of them I was hoping that I was going to get the audio for, and I didn't. So I had to remove it, and maybe at some point in the future I will get the audio for it. And that was the Pixie Hollow music, not the area music, but the music you hear during the actual water shows where the fountains go off at night. There's about, I think, maybe 5 different variations with 5 different musical soundtracks. Each show is like 7 minutes, I think, and it happens like it's like 7 minutes of quiet, and then like every 7 minutes another show starts, and then there's a 7-minute interval between each one. So then that just kind of happens continuously all night. As far as I know, I might be wrong about that. Don't quote me on that, because I've never actually seen it in person. I'm only going by what I've come to understand about it. So anyway, the that audio I thought I was going to get access to, and I still might down the road, but I don't know if I'm the person that was going to provide it for me. I lost touch with him suddenly, so maybe we'll reconnect at some point and he'll be able to get that for me. But for now, I had to remove that track. And the other track I removed was I was going to include the grad night fireworks special, and I had to remove that because, again, there was a piece of audio I needed in order to create that, and the same person said that he might be able to get me that audio, but then we kind of lost touch suddenly. So maybe down the road I'll get that audio, but for now it's not likely to happen anytime soon, so I just removed that track. So that's why 2 tracks that used to be here were removed, and instead of calling... Originally, I had this track right here, 81, listed as a grad night thing, but I decided since I didn't have the grad night fireworks to put next to it anymore, I would just make it more of a generic thing. So I changed the image, and I changed the name of the track to Dueling DJs instead of grad night Dance Party, I think is what it was originally called. But it's the same track. I just renamed it and gave it a new picture. So, again, this entire chapter is done. And if you haven't checked out yet, before I left for my trip, I added this new track, which is based on the recent After Dark event that they threw at Disneyland. They haven't mentioned anything. It's supposed to be a series of events, and they haven't mentioned it again since this throwback night happened in early January. So I don't know if they're going to continue to do it or not, but anyway, I created a track that kind of pays homage to all the live performers that were performing there during that event. So check that out if you haven't so far. So that's basically the entire chapter completed. I'm really happy to have it done, but as you may or may not know, I still have work to do. Because originally, I'm going to X out of this and go to another chapter. Originally, this chapter was part of that other chapter, and then I ended up splitting them into 2 chapters. So this chapter is called Disneyland Bandstand, and this I still have a lot of work to get done. I think, yeah, I have 26 tracks left to add to this page, and that's my priority now. That's where I'm focusing on. I want to get that done so that I can move on to something different. So over the next month or so, I'm going to try really hard to get this chapter done. And I have most of it, the majority of it done, but like I said, I still have 26 tracks to go. One thing I want to point out is I included that Michael Iceberg track also on this chapter. It's the exact same one as the one on the After Dark page. I did duplicate some of them because I felt like they belonged on both chapters. Michael Iceberg being one of those. So you will see a couple duplications. This Big Band in Disneyland section is something I really need to get going on. I only have 1 track done on this whole section, as you can see. So that's going to be happening very soon. Same with this More Legends of Jazz in Disneyland. That we're going to get on the ball with that soon. The other section that needs a little bit of work still is this Tomorrowland Terrace section down here. A lot of the tracks are done, but there's still several that are not done yet. And I added the After Dark Throwback Night on this page also, and it makes a nice kind of final track. It kind of wraps everything up and kind of brings it back to where it began. Thematically, I'm also adding, and I talked about in my last video, this Tomorrowland Terrace Summer 2017 track. Need to get that done. And I have these 3 artists that I've already started working on these 3 tracks. Each is about either like a third or half done on each of these. So you'll be seeing these very soon because I already started working on these 3. Scott Bruce, The Bolts, and Thomasina. And I added a new group that I didn't know about initially, and I came to learn about them recently. So they're called Allie and AJ. I'll be adding them also. So that's where we're at with the bandstand chapter. After the bandstand chapter is done, I'm thinking about what I want to do next. I know what chapter I kind of want to do next, but there's some things on other chapters that I've kind of left behind that I want to finish before I move on to a brand new project. And people have been kind of asking me about some of the stuff on like my Town Square page that I haven't finished yet. Mainly like the Disneyland Railroad tracks. I have a bunch of tracks that I haven't worked on that I've been putting off for a couple of years actually. Just time goes by so fast. So I might go and get all that stuff done that is all marked as coming soon, and it's been marked as coming soon for a year, 2 years, so I don't know where the word soon falls into that. But so anyway, I might get all those coming soon things done finally, just to get it done. And then I'll move on to a new chapter. And I'm really thinking my next big project is going to be Tomorrowland, and specifically my 1950s original Tomorrowland. I have a lot of tracks to add to that chapter. And so I'm kind of excited to work on that because it's kind of fun stuff, very retro. And I think everybody will really appreciate that because there seems to be a lot of fascination with that era of Tomorrowland because it's just really different from what Tomorrowland is today. So that's kind of on my list. Maybe by the middle of the year I'll get to that. We'll see. These things take a lot of time. So I also want to mention before we go my Jiminy Crickets podcast, which we're up to episode 89. Can you believe it? I just released an episode the other day on New Orleans Square in Disneyland and Liberty Square at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom. We've got a lot of great feedback on this episode, so I'd like you all to check it out if you haven't already. It's got a lot of information about the origins of these two areas in the parks that you may not have known before. We shared a lot of lesser known facts about the history behind these two interesting areas in the park. So my podcast is jcricketpodcast.blogspot.com, or you can find me on iTunes and Stitcher. And also, I posted this episode on this very channel that you are watching this YouTube video on. So if you just check out my YouTube channel, you can find the episode posted there also. So check that out. Last thing, it's been a while since I guilt-tripped you all into donating to my site, so I thought I would do that today. But before I do that, let me mention again my new sponsor, my partnership with Concierge Vacation Planners. Check them out if you're planning on taking a Disney trip to California or Florida or Paris or a cruise or Hawaii or Adventures by Disney. They do it all. There's no charge for their service. They are official Disney vacation planners, and you don't pay them. Disney pays them, and so whatever you pay for their service is exactly the same as what you would pay if you did everything on your own. But the difference is you don't have to do everything on your own. They do it for you. They book your hotels. They get you the best rates. They walk you through planning your fast passes. It's just really a wonderful opportunity. It takes all of the stress out of planning a Disney vacation, and there's no reason not to use them because they don't charge you anything. They honestly do not charge you a nickel for their service, but they treat you like royalty. So really consider using them. They're the official vacation planners of my website and of my podcast, and I'm really I'm not the type of person that would steer my audience wrong. If I don't believe in a product, I would never endorse it. So I really believe in this company. The people that work there are so nice, friendly, just wonderful, hardworking. They're there for you 24 hours a day, and I can't say enough about them. So please check them out, and if you do, tell them that I sent you, please, so they know that our partnership has worked out for them, basically. So the last thing I want to do is give you the guilt trip. If you click on Donate to Site, on my website, you have two options to become a contributor. Now, let me mention that I am unemployed, I'm disabled, and I depend on the government to help me make ends meet. I'm on Social Security, and so I have a very, what they call, fixed income, and I kind of live below the poverty line. So it costs money to bring all this stuff to you for free. Money doesn't grow on trees, Uncle Scrooge. So if you have a little to spare every month, even $1 is wonderful. $1 goes a long way if 10 people donate $1. So if you want to contribute $1 a month on Patreon, or if you want to make a one-time donation on PayPal, let's say you don't want it to come out of your credit card or PayPal account monthly, but you would like to make a contribution for a one-time, just do it through my PayPal. You can also set it up on PayPal if you don't feel comfortable using Patreon. You can also set up a monthly donation on PayPal as well if that interests you. Let me show you my Patreon page real quick. If you click on this link down here, it'll take you there. So it's loading. And it says Disney Chris is creating Disneyland and Walt Disney Archives audio editing. I post links to all of these updates on my main page of the Patreon. It's www.patreon.com/DisneyChris, by the way, is the web address. And so I just kind of give updates on here of what's going on. And also, I provide special exclusive audio content to all of the people who contribute to me on Patreon. No matter what dollar amount you contribute, everybody gets the special content every month. So that's another incentive to becoming a donator. You get special stuff that I put together just for you, for your listening pleasure. So that's my Patreon. And that's basically all I have to talk about today. I guess I went a little bit longer than I thought I would. So I guess I did have stuff to tell you about. But I hope everybody is having a wonderful late winter. Spring is coming very soon. Daylight savings is nigh. Thank goodness. I don't like it when it gets dark so early. And St. Patrick's Day is right around the corner. Hopefully I'll have another update before then, and I will talk to you all very, very soon. Bye-bye.